Hello, my name is Shantria Tram, and welcome to the assignment walkthrough video for Assignment 5, Define Data Elements. You'll be working offline today in your curriculum workbook under the tab Define Data Element Structure. And for this assignment, you will be led by Nicholas Santello and our resident expert in monitoring and evaluation, Gillian Kerr.
Gillian, over to you. These required indicators. Now, here we have an example USDA indicators. Where would people be finding these indicators to put into this first left column?
Right. Well, to begin with, indicators are really difficult to develop. And you can see the USDA indicators, they may sound straightforward enough, but they've probably gone through years of testing and revising. If you're lucky, you will be in a position of using well-developed indicators that somebody else created for you. Or perhaps your agency has already invested the time into developing good indicators. If that's the case, building data elements is really straightforward because they're already defined. They already have numerators and denominators. You can just take the description that you already have and dump them into this spreadsheet. If you're not lucky, you have vague indicators. You have indicators that maybe your funders developed but haven't really articulated very well. They may be poorly structured. In that case, you're going to be in a difficult position because indicator development is its own task. So what we would suggest is that for the phase one, you use well-designed indicators that somebody else has given you that you have to collect. Because as you'll remember during the prioritization process, for this phase, the quick start process, you want to incorporate the requirements from stakeholders that you can't say no to.
Right.
So you're probably doing this because a funder or the board or somebody has said you must do it. M&E is a very difficult process, so you want to start with the things that you have to do, so you start with the indicators you're stuck with. If you have not gone through the process of designing them, then you're just going to have to make your best guess, knowing that you're going to have to go back later on and fix it as people complain or as you realize what's missed.
Okay, so it's a huge job to be choosing your indicators and understanding what they are. But what I'm hearing as well is that if you focus on the ones that are mandatory and you focus on the ones that are high quality to start with, then you should be able to at least start filling out this table. And we're not talking about the process of choosing your indicators and validating them, but we're talking about once you have them chosen, once you know what you need, those you can put in here, and if they are validated and there's some research behind them, then you should be quite easily able to enter the numerator and denominator, right?
That's right. And the nice thing about starting with well-designed and well-structured indicators is that it'll teach you what they look like. And so for following phases, when you're in the position of creating or revising your own indicators, you'll know all the bits and pieces that have to be put in place to be usable in an M&E system.
Cool. So what I'll make sure is that we add a couple of links in the description below, so that people can find just example websites of good indicators. They might already know how to do it, but just to kind of show them.
Sure.
So let's scroll down and we'll be able to, so that we can still see the example USDA indicators at the top of your screen, but that we can also see how this moves into data elements.
Like here?
Perfect. Yeah, let's stick there. So this is the next table where we've pulled the indicator into its numerator and denominator, and sometimes it's just over 1, and now we're trying to pull it into something that will look very close to what we want to enter into DHIS2, which is why it's our assignment. So you can see the reason I've color-coded them is because I want to show the connection between the two tables. And what we've done is I've now made a column for each disaggregation type that we want for these data elements. Some data elements don't have a disaggregation type. For example, the number of teachers employed on the top left is just the straight number of teachers employed, whereas the number of school-age children receiving school meals as a result of USDA assistance, we might want to disaggregate by which one of these students are male and which one are female, and onwards and onwards. So I mean, this is, to me, it seems pretty basic, but I guess the question is also, which do you disaggregate by, right? It's once you know it, you can make the table, but coming up with that solution, you have to really know what you're reporting by, what they want you to report by, what's important, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it looks obvious until you start trying to until you start trying to do it. So I'll talk about gender just for a sec, because this is an important issue. You see here it's disaggregated by female and male. Those are not the only choices. You also have other. You also have refuse to answer. You also have just missing data for one reason or another, and you also have additional responses. I think in India now there's official recognition that there's a third gender, but more and more, depending on the agencies, people identify themselves as different sexes. And when it comes to DHIS2, this becomes important for a couple of reasons. One is that certain agencies are going to reject just the two options. And so you need a way to code female and male across agencies if you're going to roll these up, because they may actually be defined in different ways. But another problem is that when you start talking about disaggregations, if you have too many fine-grained breakdowns, then you can't, anonymity becomes threatened, because you have a cell size that's so small you can figure out who said what.
Right.
It becomes very difficult to aggregate across a population, because you don't have statistical power, or you don't have, you have too many disaggregations and your data becomes a big mess. So deciding on disaggregation, you figure out, as usual, what is the absolute minimum number of disaggregations that you are actually going to use. So either your stakeholder that you can't refuse has said that you have to break it down that way, or it's completely unmeaningful if you don't break it down that way. Or for some other reason, like planning or program delivery, you must know the disaggregation. And then if there are other issues, you may want to dip into them through probes, special probes, or qualitative analysis. Wow. and get at issues that way.
Okay. And when it comes to, so this is a big, obviously this is a big assignment when it comes to the thought beforehand. So we can't necessarily assist with that sort of thing, but obviously we can tell you how hard it is. When it comes to DHIS2, you can create as many disaggregates as you want. We call them categories. And so you can create as many categories with as many category options as you like. That is fully flexible. So you can have as many columns. If you were to look at this example USDA data elements table, it could have hundreds of columns if that's what you needed for your organization. That's not the issue. The issue is more the quality of them. Like you just said, Gillian, being as simple as possible, simplifying as much as you can, and making sure that they're all high quality. So it's not the complexity that's an issue on DHIS2's side. It's the data quality on the design side. Yeah,
that's right. Like the more complexity you have, the more errors you're going to have, the more necessity for validation and for auditing, the more likely it is that the data will be junk. And so you want to keep it simple. You also are going to end up with data entry screens that have hundreds and hundreds of cells, and that they're really hard to manage. So in this example, you have disaggregation by after-school activity, for example. That's important if you get funded for that. So if somebody says you get so much money for the book club program, then you have to track it.
Right.
If you don't have to disaggregate, think about what information is really important to you, and do you absolutely need it, and what would happen if you didn't ask it. That's a good way to think all the way along the M&E process.
Great. I think that's pretty good for this assignment. We can't help as much as we would like to, or the viewers might want us to, because it is more of a conceptual thing, and you have to go back and do research, and it really applies to your own program, whoever you are and wherever you're working. But I think this was a great outline of what's required getting started to set up with DHIS2. And if you do know what you're looking at, and if watching this video, everything on your side of the organization is already set, then you're definitely ready to go forward and work on the other assignments. So thank you so much, Gillian, for joining me, and Thanks. I think we're good for now.
Thanks for joining us. You can always reach us at info@logicaloutcomes.net, or click right there on the screen to access the online curriculum.